Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show how to delete details like user's device type, browser and operating system from the server side in Next.js app using user agent string. This kind of detection is incredibly useful not just for styling but also for logic. Sure, Tailwind CSS is a great for responsive design, you can handle a lot with media queries, but what happens when your JavaScript needs to know what kind of device is user on during the first render from the server side? You might need to show different behavior, load different assets, or trigger a mobile specific flow, and for that you need to know the device as a part of your app state, not just from CSS. Now here's the catch. A lot of people run in the same issue. They try to detect this is on the client side using Navigator user agent or window inner size. But in server rendering app like Next.js, that values doesn't exist on the first render. It's undefined or inaccurate until the hydration is complete, so which can lead to flickering, layout shifts, or broken logic. In this particular video, we will focus on clear example detecting device types, mobile or desktop, and using both in layout and runtime event handlers. By the end, you'll have a clean way to make your app smarter and more responsive to your user's actual environment from the very first node. So let's jump in.
So first thing first, I would like to share with you guys what's a user agent. Basically, user agent is a string sent by a web browser or a client within HTTP header of a request. So it identifies the software like a browser or an app making the request into the server. So this helps to websites to customize the content, mobile or desktop, collect analytics, browser usage or operating system distribution, or block unwanted bots or crawlers. While there is no strict standard how the user agents are formed, but most user agent strings follows the shown structure. The product name and the versions are included from the start, then the system information like operating system, CPU architecture, and so on. After that, browser engine is included like Apple WebKit or Chrome and Safari. After that, browser name and the version are included with compatibility information. I've already prepared a custom hook within my Next.js application called useIsMobile, which is basically going to hold isMobile state within this custom hook, and it's going to get updated within the useEffect every time whenever the user moves from one breakpoint into another one, and at the end the hook is going to return the isMobile state. So I'm going to use this custom hook within this in my custom page and return the isMobile, and whenever the user is going to see the mobile content, if the hook is isMobile, if not, it's going to return me the desktop content. Let's try to see this in a practice. So whenever I try to refresh the desktop content within my application, everything looks fine. But whenever I change into the desktop version and I will try to refresh the page, as you can see, there is a layout shift whenever I try to refresh my page, which is agree with me, is not good user experience. So this is not the behavior I want to see within my application, and this is simply happening because within my custom hook, as you can see, the initial state is undefined, because on the initial render I cannot tell whether the device of the user is mobile or not, and since on the first render is on mobile, on the first render isMobile is undefined, it's giving me the desktop content which is holding the app sidebar, which should be visible within this mobile version. So in order to fix this issue, I should properly pass the initial state within my mobile. So for that, we are going to use the user agent from the server side. So in order to be able to do that and pass this value into the custom hook, I'm going to create a context and wrap the layout with this context and pass the correct value from the user agent. So for that, I'm going to create a new context called device context, and this is going to be a new context from React, which is going to hold an object with its mobile property. This is going to be a boolean or undefined, simply because I'm going to pass the isMobile property as a default value and undefined. The default value of this context is not relevant since it's going to be overridden within the server side. So let's export this context value, and I'm going to wrap my layout of the app with this context. Device context, this should be a provider, and I forgot to include that it should be the client side. For that, I'm going to write as a use client. Now I have to pass this correct value is mobile object, and in order to correctly pass this value, for now I'm going to pass as a false. Now I'm going to create a new method called getDevice. So let's implement this. Now this is going to be a synchronous function since I'm going to use the headers from the Next.js, and I'm going to hold the header as from the headers of the Next.js. Now I'm going to get the user's agent string from the header. So I'm going to call this as user agent and header. The header is called a user agent, and let's try to see what's written within this string. So for that, I'm going to call a console log user agent and just return some undefined value. So let's go over to layout and call this method within our layout. So I'm going to call as device getDevice. Our root layout should be a synchronous function, therefore I can pass as a await. So let's try to refresh. So there is an error since our device context should be written from our client side. For that, I'm going to create a new provider component from this file. So for that, I'm going to export a new provider and device context provider. This is going to receive and properties as the properties of this the same as a context, and I'm going to create a new type. So let's call this device context props. This should be exactly as it is, and let's pass these properties into here, and let's return the device context. Forgot this value should be tsx. Now I'm going to pass as a device context provider, and let's return it as a children. This should also contain children as React node, and I'm going to pass this value as a children. Now we can destructure the children from the properties, and let's pass these properties as a value into the context. I can pass this children. Now I can export this device context provider within my layout without no error. So this should be exported correctly. And is mobile should be false for now. I'm going to rerun my server. Now, as you can see, I'm getting the user agent string, which basically contains everything about the user's device, which is basically an iPhone and CPU and operating system, and also everything about browser and so on. So this is happening simply because I'm all using the dimension and the properties of the iPhone 14 Pro Max. That's why we are getting this type of user agent. If I switch into the desktop and refresh the page, I'm going to receive completely different user agent, which is basically going to be a Windows and Chrome and so on. Every bit of information about my device. So let's try to use this information to get whether our device is mobile or desktop. So for that, I'm going to install a new package called ua-parser-js, and this is called npm i user agent parser.js. I've installed this value, and now I have to check whether my header exists or not. So for that, this is completely safe, and this is done for type safety. And I'm going to create a new instance from the user agent. This is called user agent parser, I think. And this should be imported from the user agent parser from user parser.js. Now I have to pass the user agent string from the header, so ua-parser. Now you can extract any bit of information about the user's device, just like so. For that, you have to use the user agent instance. You can get the browser, CPU, device, engine, operating system, and so on. So for my case, I'm going to get the device, but keep in mind that you can create another context or include another value within the context in order to pass from the server into client and use for your own case. So for my case, I'm going to use only device. So for that, I'm going to get the device. Now I can get the type of the model, and this includes everything about whether it's a mobile, smart TV, tablet, and so on. So I only care about whether it's a mobile or desktop. For that, I'm going to compare with a mobile and return whether it's a mobile. If it's a mobile, it's going to return true. If not, it's going to return false. So let's try to pass this value into my layout, and pass is mobile. Let's call this is mobile, and pass this value into here. So this should work, and let's capture this value within our custom hook. For that, I'm going to use the context value from use context, and I'm going to use the context of device context, and pass the value as an initial prop into context is mobile. So let's try this out within our browser. Let's try to check our desktop whether it's not broken or not. Let's try to refresh. I don't see any layout sheet within my app. Let's move on to our mobile and let's try to refresh. I don't see any layout sheet and it's completely fixed our problem. Also guys, if you would like to know user agent from the route handlers of the Next.js application within the endpoint, you can use the user agent from the Next server, and it will also print out your user agent, device, CPU, browser, and also everything about the device of the user. So let's try to refresh it. Within my endpoint, I'm requesting the get request, and on my console I'm getting everything information about the user's device. So bear in mind that you can use user agent within the route handler and use it for your own use case. If you like this video guys, don't forget to subscribe and hit like button, and I'll see you in the next video.